Okay, welcome back. Our next committee is Finance and Personnel. Roxanne is chair.
Welcome to the Finance and Personnel Committee. I'm excited we're convening. We don't do so very often. I'm joined on this committee by Councilmembers Vargas and Hamel. We have two agenda items. The first agenda item is an ordinance amending the 2017-2018 adopted budget, recognizing property tax revenues in the Greenways Fund, appropriating a portion for capital maintenance, and increasing ending reserves. We have Leslie Bryson from our Parks Department. Please take it away.
Thank you. Leslie Bryson, Parks and Recreation Director, and I'd like to introduce our new Park Operations Manager, Steve Januszewski. He's been here for just a little bit over a month, and one of his first duties was to help us come up with the list of how we're going to spend our initial maintenance money. As you know, this Greenway 4 levy is different from ones in the past, in that the council resolution gave us guideline to use 25% of the money for operations and maintenance, and we have a backlog of capital maintenance projects, and Nicole Oliver, our development manager, is going to run through a few of these. Because the Greenway levy didn't pass until after the 17-18 budget had been submitted, we didn't get these in, and we wanted to take some time to prioritize our list of maintenance items. So this is just the first 2 years of projects, and then we'll be doing more after that. As far as the rest of the funding for the first 2 years, the Greenway Committee is updating the strategic plan, and that'll go to the Park Board for a recommendation, and we'll bring that forward for a 2018 budget amendment to start budgeting the acquisition and development money. This year, we're still finishing up spending the Greenway 3 levy funds as well, but we did want to get started on the capital maintenance, and Nicole's going to go through the projects that we're planning to do in this initial budget request.
Hi. Good afternoon, Council. Nicole Oliver, Parks Development Manager. So I'm just going to be really brief here, giving you an overview. Civic Field, one of our key park assets, has some concrete water damage, and the North Grandstand roof we're going to be fixing. It's going to be a pretty significant project. Probably won't. The roof is going to happen this summer. I have a bet with Leslie over whether or not we can figure that out, but the roof is going to happen this summer, and the concrete work will be next summer. Jerry Field lighting, we've replaced one field already. It's some old lighting, and we're doing an assessment right now, and we'll probably do it in phasing, but it needs replacement. It's also rather expensive. This is the bridge in Cornwall over Squalicum Creek. It's the older bridge, not the newer one. The main pathway goes around the playground and then crosses this bridge. It's got significant rot, and we're bringing in an engineer to take a look at it actually tomorrow. This is the Wharf Street trestle, where you come out of the South Bay Trail and you cross Wharf Street and then you head into town. This is going to be a very significant project, and we will be doing design and speccing out what needs to be done this year, and then it won't happen until next year. It'll be interesting too, because we only own the property the bridge is on, so we're going to have to get easements to be next to it while we do the construction. This is going to happen quite soon. We've got it specced out. It's the roof on this tower. The tower's in great shape. The roof needs to be replaced. Probably be doing this in August. And then there's a kind of a slew of operation funding that's going into the operations department to help with replacing old drinking fountains. That's the really beautiful drinking fountain at Shucks and Meadows Park we're going to replace. There's also some old toilets that need replacing, trail resurfacing, and quite a few hazard trees. So that's some of the things that operations will be doing. That's it. Oh, one more. Lake Padden. This is leftover Greenway 3 money. We're going to focus on the bathhouse, roof, and some of the drainage and some trails and curbs around the bathhouse. That's Greenways 3, though, so we're still continuing to finish up some stuff that's already funded.
So we prioritized this first list of projects based on safety and use of facilities, and we don't want to have to close any of these facilities, so we really want to get started on these. We're also asking for funding to fund some staff. We currently are funding some operations staff with the Greenway 3 levy. That continues through this year, but we want to add some additional staff to help get some of these projects done and have more people in the field. And then when we come back next year, we'll be looking at other staffing needs.
Well, I'd just like to thank the voters out there, because I know these kind of projects with maintenance aren't the most exciting thing to this support, but we really need this in our community. Committee members, any questions or thoughts? Councilmember Vargas, please.
I do. I just have one curiosity, because I get asked about this one all the time, is the Lake Padden water fountain. Was that included in that one?
There's 4 drinking fountains right now we've targeted. One is at Cornwall, which is at the tennis courts. The Shuckson Meadows one we've already mentioned. There's one at Lake Padden at the tennis courts. That one is on the list as well. And then there's a new
tennis courts ones.
Yeah, another one at Upper Whatcom Falls where the tennis courts are there. So wherever there are sports activities like tennis, we want to make sure there's water available.
Okay, great. I get emails about that one.
And the only reason it hasn't been fixed is because we have to do more than just replace the drinking fountain.
And I
There's
remember
broken water lines. And,
you saying that to me, that it was a bigger infrastructure thing. That's why I was like, oh, is that included? So thank you. That will make lots of people over there very happy. And then one additional question in regards to replacing the lights. Have we looked at what the rebates are from the utility to help us in some of the costs of that? If we're doing, I'm assuming we're going LED. Is that correct?
That's what we're looking at.
Yeah.
So we're just starting to look into that project because we don't have the money budgeted yet. But those are lights that are failing, and we will have to close the field tonight use unless we do something. So we're just starting that assessment, but we'll look at all those options.
Yeah,
Thank you.
because there's a lot of people there at 9, 10 o'clock at night still playing sports, so that'd be great. Okay, thanks. That's it.
Councilmember Hamilton-Borneman, please.
So you're looking for approval of this ordinance tonight?
Ideally, yes. Or it can be introduced.
Sure.
But
I would move approval of this.
Great. Councilmember Borneman?
Yeah, just a question. I understand, the importance of staff wanting to get this maintenance one out there real quick in the list. But equally important to the people that voted for this is the 33% acquisition and things. And my understanding is looking at those possibilities within the Greenways Committee has been going very slow. And, I would really like to see that coming forward as well, because that was, that's kind of at the heart of the whole Greenways concept. And so will the committee be, I know you've asked them a number of times to go back and prioritize and go back and do it again and things, but is it going to be coming before us soon? Because I know
yes,
there's a lot of people work on the committee that are they want to get moving on that part of it too.
yes, we are working on that. They had a work session earlier this year, and the public was invited to attend that to give input. And Nicole is really focusing them now on staying focused on getting this plan updated, and we want to bring it to you by fall so we can do get it in the budget for next year. And we still have about $7 million in Greenway 3 levy. We have money for acquisition and the projects Nicole mentioned. So we're still spending money.
And you've got the word approximately 25. In budget items, approximately is a worrisome kind of word. What's that mean? Approximately 25%.
I believe that was the language in the resolution, so that council wasn't necessarily exactly 25%, but that is the intent.
But we're allocating here to take out of the money coming in, as it comes in, my understanding would be how much are you directing Brian to actually take out? Is it 25? Is it 28? Is it 20?
It's about 25%. It's not more than 25%.
Not more than, okay.
Yeah.
Because usually we don't we don't get that language when it's coming forward on a budget item.
Okay,
And-
so we never know exactly how much money we're going to get until we actually collect it, but the anticipated revenue for 2017 is $4.934 million. 25% of that is $1.2335, and that's how much we're proposing to budget. And same in 2018. The amount we're proposing to budget is 25% of the estimated revenue.
So the funding as it comes in from wherever, no more than 25 will be taken out at any point for that, to set aside into
Well,
that.
it depends on what else we have going on. If land acquisition is slowing down, maybe we budget more one year, but less in a future year. Council would have that flexibility. It wouldn't be necessarily be more over the life of the levy, but it could vary from year to year depending on how much money we have for other things.
So you could take the full amount of 25% out of the front part of it and leave everything else till, this is confusing.
Well, that's not, right now, that's not our intent.
I know,
But that's, yeah, so
we're given direction, and for me to
If it
vote on
starts to go over
something, I need to know.
25%, can we be notified?
Absolutely.
That's my request. Can we carry on?
Okay.
Council members, any other questions? Michael?
Just a small matter. You did bring up the issue of the Seahome Tower. Thanks for fixing the roof. It's a side question. What are our policies and practices with regard to keeping the view open from Seahome Tower? Because those trees are much bigger than they once were.
Right. That was in the master plan for the Seahome Arboretum, is to open those views up again. We did a study. We have the permits from the city. We need a forest practice permit, and working with Western Washington University and our own crews, we're going to do that work in the winter, next winter.
This winter? Good.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Councilmember Barker, please.
Thank you. So my question's related to, in the third paragraph, you mentioned that the Greenways will be coming back hopefully by fall with their you'll be bringing their recommendations. We haven't brought forward the level of service tool, and I know that was very important in the comprehensive plan, that we were going to have some really good direction based on equity. So my concern is that they're going through the process right now, and if we don't have that equitable level of service tool, it could be informing them. And a good example of that is in our whereases clauses. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. The fifth whereas clause says there's a backlog of significant capital maintenance projects that have been prioritized by staff based on safety, level of use, and importance within the park system. And I think because we don't use that equitable language there, that's where we run into even park maintenance issues where, well, we did level of service because this one was used more, so we just didn't maintain this one. I'm not going to ask you to change it right in this moment, but it's going to be, for me, very important that Greenways is well aware of the conversations that we had through the comprehensive planning process, the policies that we put forward, and to get that tool to us as soon as possible so we can then say, yes, this is exactly the direction we want you to take. I'm just concerned that they're taking direction without fully being informed with where we came from on that. And I think that's a great example right there, that level of use based on safety, those are just two things that we could get really sidetracked and end up fairly marginalizing and hurting other people by not looking at that component.
Yeah, and I would say that importance within the park system is also related to equitable, and that is one of the goals that you added into the comprehensive plan. Is that is one of the ways we look at prioritizing is where is the need based on that equitable, social equity and equitable distribution.
Thank you.
Council members, anything further? Seeing none, we have a motion, an ordinance amending the budget recognizing property tax revenues in the Greenways Fund. Committee members, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed say no. Motion carries. We will bring this forward tonight. We have a second agenda item. It is the 2017 financial report. This is the first quarter review of city revenues, expenses, and investments. And Brian Henshaw from our finance department is queuing up a presentation that we will hear soon.
right. Good afternoon, Council. Brian Henshaw, Finance Department. Today's presentation is on the first quarter financial review. It's on the website along with our financial statements. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask them as I go along. We'll start with a few national numbers. The core inflation rate, which is the CPI rate less food and energy prices, is at 1.9%. The target for the feds is about 2%, so we're close to that target. Unemployment, national unemployment is down to 4.3%. The labor force participation rate is about 62.7%. This is also down. This is the number of people that have jobs but are also actively looking for jobs. This is a real concern for the Fed because it continues to go down, which means less people are working or less people are looking for jobs. And the Federal Reserve rate is about 1% currently. They meet next week to decide if they'll increase the rates, and they have to weigh all those combination of events to determine if we are ready for a rate increase. It's a loaded question. We'll let the experts decide that, but it's looking likely that they probably will increase it another 0.25% next week. Whatcom County non-farm jobs is up to 92,300. This is about an increase of 3,000 jobs per month for the first 3 months of the year. That's a good growth rate in jobs, and we are at 4.6% unemployment rate for the state and 4.8% locally. So we're all trending very good for the unemployment rate currently this year. Some of those numbers are April and May numbers too for the bigger stats. Citywide revenues. We've increased revenues from almost $52 million up to $54.6 million, or 5%. I'm just going to point out the highlights. They've been annotated here. Basically, on property tax, this has more to do with timing and collection. We are trending a little bit behind last year on the collections, but some of this could be an accounting change. Sales tax and public safety tax were up 7% for the first 3 months of the year. B&O tax is also up 7% for the first 3 months. Utility taxes are about 5% higher. Other taxes is largely attributable to REIT. We had a very large transaction in March in REIT, but $900,000 of this $1.8 million is all REIT revenue. So the housing market and real estate market continues to be very strong locally. Grants and entitlement revenue is up 13%. Portion of this is due to grants, capital projects, and then reimbursement for the grants, and also for District 8. So last year, you recall, on July 1st, we signed a contract to provide services for Fire District 8. They pay us, and we have the responsibility of providing fire service and emergency service to Fire District 8. They are all city employees now. The other change I'll point out here is just an accounting change from the state. We used to account for employee health contributions in miscellaneous. It's now up here in this other one, so these two are just offsetting each other. Citywide expenditures also are up. They're up 3% for the first 3 months. Overall, operational expenses are trending pretty flat, although you will notice here that we have a significant decrease, $1 million, in the planning department. That is mostly attributable to the home fund, large projects or contributions. We had more last year than this year, so this is down 36%, and most of the other categories are up. Ted was talking about the Holly Street project. That's one of several projects that started early this year to spread out the capital projects throughout the year. You see that we're up 46% for the first 3 months. We have a very large backlog of capital projects. There's about $70 million of budgeted capital projects for the 17 fiscal year, although a normal year we do about $30 to $35 million, so some of that will carry forward into 2018. They're 2-year projects or planning projects or have to do with fish windows near water sources, that type of thing. On the general fund, revenues are up from just over $16 million to $17.4 million. This is an 8% increase in revenue in the general fund. Again, property tax is more to do with timing. I mentioned sales and B&O tax. For the first 3 months, they're up 7%, but in April and May, they've reverted a little bit back to the mean. We are still year-to-date ahead about 5%, so still good growth in those two activities. And they're largely due to construction, so any related industry, construction-related, you drive through town, you see a lot of construction happening. That is providing this sales tax and B&O tax. And then also car sales and parts. So a lot of people are out spending money on new cars, which is a good thing. Other taxes here is more admissions taxes and leasehold tax. And then I mentioned already Fire District 8. This is where it shows up in the general fund as revenue from Fire District 8. And then down here, interfund loans and transfers. This is a budgeted amount for the financial software conversion that we're doing. It's a new core financial software project. We have money coming in from other funds to pay for the general fund department portion of that. General fund expenditures increase from 17.4% to 18.8%. It's an 8% increase year over year. Most of that is all on the operational side. You see here it's up from 16.3 to 17.7. That's a 9% operational. This is by category. The transfers here is from the general fund out. So this pays for the cemetery, Medic 1, but it also is going to the fleet fund to pay for the new fire truck. So we ordered a new fire truck at the very beginning of this year, $750,000. So those transfers will be going from the general fund to the fleet fund. Salaries and benefits are up about 3% overall. Supplies and other services right now are trending behind last year. Probably make up some of that in the upcoming months. And then intergovernmental services, these are a lot of the citywide expenditures. The audit is now underway. That's one of these. But also the elections. This is an election year, so we'll have election expenditures towards the end of the year, and some of that will be spent later in the year rather than the beginning of the year. Another way to look at the general fund expenditures is by department. Most departments are trending at or the expected increase in the budget. Yours is more to do with the city council budget. A 10% increase looks like a big number, but it's a big percent, but it's small dollar increase, and this has to do with just the planned budgeted allocation expense that everybody increased this year. Judicial services, looking into the details of these transactions, it looks like that just some of the invoices and haven't been paid or weren't received in time to make it into the March financial statements. And then, as I mentioned before, on the fire department, we have 8 new fire employees. These were the District 8 employees that came over and are now city employees. So they have the tax levy and they have their revenues. They contract with the city for service. Those employees are now City of Bellingham firefighters, and then we provide that service to that district. Just some of the highlights of the enterprise funds. The first enterprise fund is the street fund. Most of this has to do with the construction and being early in the year and timing. They also receive sales tax dollars. That's the 7%. The federal, state, and grant revenue is lower this year than it was last year. We have projects going on, but they're either haven't started or we haven't billed, but also the Holly Street project that's going on right now, and the early one is not a grant eligible project. That's all local dollars, so that's one here. Overall, revenues are down slightly from last year because of grant revenue and also contributions from developers or latecomer fees. That's the big difference right now this year. Salaries are down slightly year over year, but these will pick up throughout the year as the construction projects go on. Also remember, throughout the rest of the enterprise funds, some of the salaries is due to the way we are accounting for it, but we also had all of the contracts settle last year for all of the bargaining groups, so we had large retro pays. So early in the year, some of the difference from last year to this year is just because of the retro pay. In the water fund, it's the last year of the water meter conversion. I believe that all of the meters are now in. That was a big 16,000 meters had to be converted. So this will be the last year that you'll have unmetered water rates and metered water rates. Next year, starting on January 1st, they'll all be in the metered category. Total revenues are up 26%. The other large increase is right here on system demand charges. So again, attributable to construction. We have a lot of construction going on right now and people hooking up to the water and sewer. Salaries and wages I talked about before. And capital expenditures, you see this increase in the water fund. The largest capital project right now is a pretreatment plant. It's well underway, and that's about a $14 million construction project that'll be going through the books this year. But in the water fund, there's about $21.5 million of capital construction budgeted. So a big year for the water fund on construction. Watershed is a subset of the water fund. This money is flat or a little bit decreased for the first 3 months. I think this is timing of the billing cycles. We bill every 2 months and we have some conversions. This is also variable now based on the metered rates versus the unmetered rates, so we'll have to watch this going forward. But again, the demand charges are up. This is hookup fees. Salaries and wages are up slightly this year. We do have a full-time person now in the Watershed Fund that is monitoring and taking care of the watershed properties. And then capital outlays are up this year, and debt service is down because we refunded some of the debt in water and sewer funds at the beginning of 2016. Sewer fund is related similarly. We're converting all the meters from unmetered to metered. These revenue will now be down in the metered portion. Overall revenues are up 6%. Salary and wages down. Supplies are down. A lot of the supplies in both water and the sewer fund have to do with the metering project. Capital is down so far this year, but there is $5 million of capital budget this year, so there will be some projects that will happen now with the good weather. This is just before construction season as of March. Some of the other major enterprise funds, storm and sewer, storm and surface. Expenses are down this year. It's just a comparison from last year. This was a large capital expenditure early last year. Overall revenues are up about 18%. In the solid waste fund, we had a decrease in revenues. This is attributable to an interfund loan to the Watershed fund earlier that was repaid here, so that's why there's a decrease. And on the expense side, this has to do with remediation costs. So we are still planning the remediation programs and cleanup down on the waterfront. We have 4 main sites. We continue to spend money on those, but we have not started the actual construction on those, mostly consulting work. And then in the development fund, we'll talk about the permit revenue next, but you can see revenues are up about 25%. It's off to a good year, and correspondingly, the expenses are up 32%. Some of this is the type of permits that have been processed early in the year, and also rental registration costs continue to be increased as we have that inspection program go on. As of March, we had $29 million of permit activity. This is actually down from last year, which was $34 million, so a $5 million decrease. But you'll see that single family is the largest increase in the amount of dollars for the permit activity. We also had some good growth in multifamily. But what was missing here, it's a very small number, is new commercial activity. And then commercial alterations was also down a little bit. But I will say that May came in at $30 million by itself, so we're up to over $60 million in permit activity, and it did include some of these new commercial and new alterations. So we're well on track to another good year in the permit center. Investments, we have $192 million invested at the end of March. Most of that is in federal bonds or treasuries. That's the 75% here. We have about 10% in municipal bonds. Opus Bank is just a savings account, and then savings, the state investment pool is a cash money market account. These two are basically to meet our bond requirements that we have to protect that money. We can't invest it, but also it is in case of emergency if we need cash in short order. The overall earning rate is about 1.1% for the first 3 months. It's up from about 0.8 last year, and compared to the two comparisons we have, we're doing a little bit better than the state LGIP rate, and also this is a rolling fund, treasury fund. And the average maturity of duration now is 2.4 years for our investments. We can go all the way out to 5 years, but right now the duration, the average amount of investment is 2.4 years. So that's it. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to take those now.
Thank you for the information and presentation. Committee members first. Councilmember Vargas.
Thank you, Brian. Quick question. Can you remind me, what is our target for our entire total budget for the city for the year?
How much have we budgeted for 2017?
Yes.
Yeah, it's about $250 million.
250 million? And how much have we spent so far? None of these have a layout that has all the numbers. Maybe if you could, if you
This
would
one doesn't
mind.
include the budget. In the June presentation, I'll include the budgeted numbers for that, just because we're so early in the year that there's a lot of just numbers that are way off the charts in one direction or the other. So we've done 59 million or 50 million.
50 million, okay, all right. I just wanted to get it in that estimate. I won't
that's a
come
good
back
point.
and hammer on your door if you know.
Okay.
Just an idea where we're at our spending and are we on target to meet our goal then?
Yes, yes. So the big difference, so if you did 4 times this, it'd be 200 million, but we do more than that because of capital. And so capital early in the year due to the construction season and the length of projects, but like the water treatment plant is up and running now, so that'll have a large number of expenditures in a short order. So we make up. The average that we do is about $30 to $35 million of capital, and we've only done 4. So that tells you how much we'll process in the next 6 months. And this is a little bit retroactive since it's March. So.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Hamel, please.
What percentage of the sales tax goes to public safety?
On the expense side, that's a good question. So the public safety sales tax that you see on there is only about $1.4 million that's specifically public safety versus all the rest of it, which can be into the general fund. So the total expenditures for the police budget is closer to $30 million. So you see that most of it is all of the sales tax, and then property tax, utility taxes make up that difference. So public safety, I can give you out as the general fund, out of 75 million, it's 52 million is police and fire. So it's over 50% of the city's general fund budget, which is more than just sales tax or property tax, utility tax, or B&O tax. So it's a very large portion of that. Yeah, we don't say all sales tax. It's just one of the many revenue sources that are used to pay for public safety.
Council members, anything further? Councilmember Barker, please.
Under single family, you had mentioned construction on your permitting activity, but that doesn't include, this isn't just for new construction of single homes. This includes improving your bathroom, putting on a second story.
Correct. That would be all construction permits, and it's the way they process the permit value is what you estimate the project will cost when you get your permits, and then it's trued up at the end, but it's all construction.
And then in our last biennium, you had mentioned that it was construction that kind of kept us trending a little bit more evenly. Do you expect that's going to be happening from what you're seeing over the next
On the permit side or on the revenue side of all?
The revenue, I think it helped balance us a bit. Is one of the.
Well, it's certainly something that we need to continue to watch. So both car sales and construction you can go up and down. They're cyclical, and they can stop very suddenly. So we don't want to overestimate revenues based on where we are today, but we'll continue to watch it. As I said, sales tax has already decreased now. Year to date, it's down to about 5.2%. So it's going back towards it, but that's still very strong growth in sales tax. So we need to look at not only the industries that are providing that, but also the growth. And then permits is like a leading indicator. So what Rick sees in the permit center is going to turn into hopefully construction projects, which will turn into not only utility but property tax and all those. So it's a leading indicator.
Councilmember Hamel.
Where do SDCs and impact fees, what category are they included in revenues? Are they other charges, fines, permits, and licenses?
Are you looking at the citywide one or in?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm on Citywide page 3.
So.
You're page 4.
Yeah. Utility charges for service would have that, and also in other charges. for impacts. And then in the funds, I showed you on the water, the sewer one, where it's the impact fee for hookups. I could give you more detail on that if you want to just see that separated out.
I think that's fine. I just wanted to understand how you accounted for that.
Council, anything further? Seeing none, this was for information only. We appreciate the report. End of committee.
Thank you, Roxanne. Again,